Welcome back to On Guard Cigar Salon, where four kinky guys, actually four kinky older guys, sit around, we talk the shit, we talk about how things used to be and how things are now. We are joined today with Lynn Thornton, Grace Bannon, the Cigar Pig, and of course our producer, Amp, who is always behind the camera, making sure we're doing everything right. So one of our highest rated episodes was our On Guard Ask a Leather Daddy Anything that we did up at Gear Up. We had a live audience, people asked us questions, and the feedback from that was everyone loved to ask us questions. So we sent out on Twitter asking you what your questions are, and today we're just going to sit around and answer them. Are you guys prepared for this?
I'm ready.
You're ready?
Ready.
Do you like answering questions off the cuff?
Yes.
Has anyone looked at the questions beforehand?
I saw one or two, I think, on Twitter. Yeah.
I saw one.
That's because you know how to use Twitter.
I haven't seen any questions.
That's because you don't know how to use Twitter.
I've only seen one that was retweeted by Race. That's because I don't know how to use Twitter.
Question.
Yes.
Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
We're ready.
Do
All
it.
right.
So
hit us.
there are some rules to this game. To this method of questions. There are no follow-up questions, and you kind of just have to make up your own synopsis, shorthand story on whatever they're asking, pretty much, based on what they're asking. So don't ask me a question. You're going to anyway.
But how do we understand what the context is?
If we don't,
I just said that I can't. Question one. This one is from Dawson, who says, long-time watcher, first-time listener. What is the key to smoking a good cigar, and what's your favorite place to get them?
Well, my Cigar Pig gets me my cigars, so
Well-
you're my favorite place to get them.
right. Well, Grace Graylin and I were just talking about Neptune Cigars in Fort Lauderdale, and I would give them a shout out because I buy stuff online, but you visited the shop, so
It was like one of the best shops I've ever been in. It was huge. It's sectioned off properly, and the people are really, really friendly. Especially that means a lot to people of color because it's not always the case.
or queers, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a great experience.
Right, because I asked Grayson if they were queer friendly. He said, "Oh, absolutely."
Grayson.
Can I just say,
Now.
I mistakenly started saving the camera that's just saving for Graylin and Grace. I started naming it the Grace camera because my brain, and so I'm so sorry that I put that out there.
I know.
But anyway,
You're the Grace camera.
You're the Grace camera. So, and I loved hearing that because I got to say, when I've had to talk to them on the phone, they were great, and it's why I kind of kept going to their website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wait, so does that make you guys the piss camera?
Yeah,
I like that.
he wants to be that.
I'll be that.
We'll be that.
Part two of that question though is, and the key to smoking a good one.
The key to smoking a good one? Well, make sure that it hasn't dried out.
Right.
If it's dried out, it'll crack and it won't burn evenly. So keep it in a humidor. What else?
Wow. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to suggest, since I don't keep my humidor very well, I'll be honest, I buy fewer cigars so I have less to dry out. I know that sounds crazy, but I buy 5 or 10 at a time rather than a full box, because if I don't keep the humidor perfectly, then they don't dry out very quickly.
Yeah.
You know what's surprising is we don't have a cigar sponsor. We need a cigar
We
sponsor
do.
who can come on and tell us how to do this.
Neptune?
Okay.
Neptune would be good because I tried Asylum, who I smoke and always I'm very, very, very loyal to. Didn't get a response, but maybe we will.
But you know, I also, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I also want to say, make sure that you get a cigar that's good for you, because everyone wants to go and get like the huge Asylum cigars, and they're not great for everyone. So make sure that you're smoking a cigar that you want to smoke, and you're not trying to just be impressive.
Right.
And
What are you trying to say?
Okay.
The one other thing I would say is that, as I remember when I first started smoking cigars, smoke a light cigar to start, because you might want to stick with a lighter cigar, and typically the lighter the wrapper, the lighter the cigar.
Yeah.
A Connecticut is good to start out with. And one of the other things I'd say is there's 2 different ways. You're going to get a cigar that is not like open at the end. There's either a punch or you cut it. If you cut it, do it right above the shoulder so that you don't do it under that, because then you'll get tobacco in your mouth. So you really want to do it right above the shoulder. We did a little one, or a punch, and we use a punch. But I really, and one other thing I have to say is a couple of weeks ago or last week, Gray Lynn had an acid cigar, and they were always
get it right.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I think you added a D on there.
I did, right? Because I'm trying to be so.
That was for effect.
Yeah,
right?
it was.
For effect.
But I always heard, oh, those acid cigars, and that's so terrible. They're flavored. I loved it, and I, for years, have only smoked straight tobacco cigars. I loved that acid cigar. So
Yeah,
try them all.
I love the acid cigars also. They smell good and they taste good, especially if you're going to be around a lot of people.
Yeah.
No one really minds that smell.
I was shocked how good they were.
Okay, next question.
Speaking of age, Daddy Spike asked, have you ever had to deal with being excluded in the leather community? If so, how do you deal with it? Ever since I hit 50, 9 years ago, I find myself not being invited to events, play parties, etc. I'm told, you're too old for this crowd. Thank you for the videos. You're welcome. But the question, baby.
I don't think I've ever been told I'm too old. But also, a lot of events aren't really like inviting you to. You just show up to them, don't you?
Yeah, and I think I'm the oldest one here, I think.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Yes, you are.
and I don't think I've ever been excluded, and that's including in the spaces where I walk in relatively unknown. So it's not about people knowing who I am or, having a social circle already. I have walked into spaces where I'm 20 years older than anybody, 30 years older, and
It makes you feel uncomfortable a little bit.
a little bit,
Or out of
yeah.
place.
But most people are really good about it. Now, we do live in San Francisco.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are organizations like the 15 Association, those are nationwide that you can join and attend their events. So there are a couple of organizations, and I don't try to muscle in on them, like YLDG, the Young Men's Leather Discussion Group, and I think they cut it off at 40. But I haven't encountered that, but not to say that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I have to say, when I was 30, I wanted to be around 30-year-olds, or unless I was daddy hunting, then I would go to a 40-year-old. But, people want to be around their own age, and there are going to be events that we all can mingle, but there are going to be other events where, the music is too loud and the kids are dressed funny, and we shouldn't be there anyway.
Okay, you're just a little bit funny.
I have to say, for me, because I've had jobs where I've been in and out of the community for the last 40 years, and I have not experienced like being excluded. However, go to something like Smoke Out, because I do think there it's biased towards older, but there are younger people there, and you start getting connected into different groups and get accepted.
And I think that feeling goes both ways, like you just said. I think there are times I've seen younger, when I was in my 20s, I felt excluded because all the leather daddies were dressed appropriately and I couldn't afford the gear. So I think it's just the groups that you're attending.
I will say, as a younger person, I feel excluded plenty of times, but that's partly because people know I'm too busy with other things, or I'm not putting myself in that space enough to be, like, you can't expect an invite if you're not part of the community or a part of whatever event's happening. And half the time it's just letting people know you're interested.
I agree, yeah.
I say just keep putting yourself out.
And let the kids have their parties when they want to have their parties.
Right.
And their weird dress.
And
Yeah,
their weird
and
dress.
And let the kids
music.
wear dress wear, those little whippersnappers they're running around with their
Fans.
Yeah. Oh, no fan clapping.
Wait a
Right
minute.
off the line.
But fans were back with roller skating too, so they had an early life, and now they've been resurgent. So.
Hey boys, catch me if you can.
Yeah, clack, clack, clack.
Clack, yeah. Every queen had a fan.
Yeah, and let me
And a
also say,
tambourine.
as an older person, I read the room.
Yeah.
And sometimes I walk into a space. There was a play party here in San Francisco. I was by far the oldest guy there. I felt completely comfortable. Did I think I was going to jump in and play? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But that was okay. I was there to support it. I socialized a bit and I left. I read the room.
I find having low expectations for most of that stuff usually makes it so your expectations are never like let down, and you actually have a good time regardless. But that's just our opinions.
Yes.
It is.
Okay, are we good?
Next question.
Next question. Okay, this one is there's two parts to this question.
Okay.
First part from Kink Core says, how do you manage STI risks while playing with new and familiar partners?
Mhm.
And follow up, this will be, so two part. The second part being, what do you consider essential safety measures for BDSM? For example, having safety shears. So first part of the question, how do you manage STIs with new or old partners? Go.
So I think now there are many medications now on the market that are available to us that we didn't have 30 years ago.
Right.
The first one is be on PrEP. I mean, there's no reason anyone shouldn't be on PrEP.
Right.
HIV is now the only preventable STD. It's the only preventable STD.
We should probably say here, we're not doctors, we're just simply giving our
Right.
opinion.
And if you don't have a doctor who'll prescribe you PrEP, go to Mister.
Yeah.
They'll set you up.
Not a sponsor again, but
They sponsor us, please. But no, it is, because in Middle America and other places, they're having a hard time. A lot of their doctors don't even know what PrEP is.
Right.
So if you go to an organization like Mister, they can set you up and get you hooked up. Now, there's also other things. So now that everyone is on PrEP, barebacking has been gone off the shelves. And back in our day, we put on a glove. We wore condoms. And that prevented a lot of STIs.
Yeah.
And now the STIs are on the rise again.
Yeah.
I do know that, and I go through my doctor, do this through your doctor. If I'm going to a heavy play weekend where I'm going to have multiple partners, I take Doxy now. I don't think a lot of people are aware of this yet.
Doxycycline.
Doxycycline
right.
will prevent a lot of like gonorrhea and chlamydia STIs if you do it proactively.
And syphilis.
And syphilis. I did not know syphilis.
Yes.
So those are two ways to
do it.
play a little safer.
and if I can add, because Mr. serves all 50 states and I think Puerto Rico, again, not a sponsor, but there's a similar service in like Canada, British Columbia, Manitoba,
Right.
Ontario, all the other places. It's called Go Freddy, and they offer pretty much the same service as Mr., but in the Canadians. So
Oh, the candidates.
The other thing is that I get tested quarterly. I've been doing it for as long as I can remember. I go into, we're lucky here in San Francisco, we have a men's health clinic where we can walk in and say, give me a test. And I do that every quarter. I do take Doxy after sex. I don't have sex that often, so I can take it on pretty much every time I have sex.
I wouldn't suggest taking Doxy every day.
Yeah.
Right.
And don't go in the sun if you take stuff.
Oh my God, that happened to me. I got burnt to a crisp.
Makes you sun sensitive. And for those that are wondering about doxycycline as an STI prevention, you take it 24 to 72 hours after you have sex. It was presented at the recent Montreal AIDS conference. It's very well researched, and so the data is in. It works, and the efficacy is quite high. It's not 100%, but it's quite high. And the other thing I'm going to say is that if somebody says to me, I'm not going to play with you if you might have an STI. And remember, STD, STI, same thing. STI tends to be the verbiage people.
infection versus disease.
Correct.
I do want to make a distinction,
Yes.
but continue.
If they say, oh, I don't want any, I say, well, I get tested every quarter, but I might have had sex with someone last week. And so there is a modicum of risk.
Right.
It's just the risk you take. And so I don't play with them
Right.
if they're that vehement about it.
And I think that's what's really important. I came out, so did you, before HIV. And STIs were, as prevalent as they're becoming now because everybody's barebacking. And you have to do a self-assessment of what is the level of risk you're comfortable with. Because if you have sex with somebody or you go to a play party and then you're obsessed for the next week, oh my God, what did I do? That's not fun. So you have to decide, here's the level of risk that I'm willing to engage in. But the smart way to do it is getting prophy testing, which is prophylactic testing every 3 months. and be wise. Ask the person too. How about you? I think I'm clean. Or you? Have some conversation, but also know your level of risk that you're comfortable with.
I don't use that word clean though.
I know. Yeah, I agree. That's an old thing. It's strike it.
But I want to throw this in there too. A lot of people do a lot of traveling over the year. Like they'll go to IML for the first time and walk in there and be overwhelmed, or Mid-Atlantic, or one of the other events, Folsom.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that everybody else is just as excited as you are. And if you're gonna go and just jump into the bushes, you're gonna come out with something. So just know that that's part of it.
You're
and just
gonna come out with poison oak.
Yeah. You
I
might.
don't get poison oak, so I'm good.
You might.
But is plan on getting something and then going and getting tested.
Well, the other positive thing with PrEP is doctors require you to get tested quarterly to
yeah.
get the prescription. So actually, I believe it's a little safer now because more people are aware when they weren't getting tested regularly that they actually, because like chlamydia could be in you and you not know it.
Yeah. Even though I'm positive and undetectable and therefore not transmissible, I feel safer with someone who's on PrEP because I know they go through that quarterly
testing.
protocol.
Right. So what was the second part of that question?
Yeah, no, good answers. Part 2 was what is essential safety gear for BDSM? So I want just one piece of gear from each of you.
Safety gear?
Yeah, what's
Gear.
essential safety gear or measures? So something to keep things safe in a BDSM scene. Race, go.
I always carry with me safety shears, which are also called bandage shears.
Okay. Yeah, make sure you get the ones with little rounded edges.
Yep.
Graylin, go.
Make sure someone knows where you are and what type of playing you're going to do.
Daddy.
Fire extinguisher.
No. Oh well.
No, I'm kidding.
I mean,
No, that's good.
Pig, go.
I would say knowing the equipment, how to really use the equipment that you're using, any kind of equipment that you choose to use with somebody. Use it before, know what you're doing.
Also, if you're doing impact play or any cutting, have something to clean and sterilize.
Yeah, good.
I would say a first aid kit or a safe word. Next question.
The kids still play with safe words.
I wonder what the safe word is.
There's even a show with safe word in the name.
Don't fight the hand that feeds over there, okay? Speaking of being fed, have you guys supported today's sponsor?
Oh my God, Leather Daddy is in the house. Look at you. Hi, Chris.
How you doing?
What'd you bring us?
Lots of goodies. We have some tasty oil here, the world's first flavored body scrub. It is pumpkin spice season, everybody.
How basic.
Let's see, I brought glazed donut hole.
Oh, that's Graylin's favorite.
You want to taste?
Yeah, who doesn't like a glazed donut?
Well, or a glazed ass. How you do it.
My favorite story is how Graylin uses it.
It's just frosting. It's ass frosting for him.
Just takes a butter knife, slaps it on a hole, and good to go.
Toast, whatever.
Oh gosh.
What else you got?
The Leather Daddy cologne.
Oh,
I
like
know
this.
a lot of leather folks are like, cologne, leather. No. I developed this to actually work with your body. Make you feel sexy and work with your pheromones and turn people on.
It actually smells
Sex
good in
sex
leather.
It does, and we were skeptical and loved it.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's leather, there's scotch, there's vanilla. There's 18 different erotic spices that I blended together to get the blood flowing. Make it feel sexy and turn you on a little bit.
I love that.
And then my body balm here, plant-based. Everything is plant-based. You could practically eat everything that I make.
So what is a body balm?
So a body balm, it's a lot more deeper moisture than lotion.
So you leave it on?
Yeah.
This one you leave on. Don't
Yeah.
wash off. I know, it's so confusing.
Great for shaving seams and things like that.
Oh,
There's an idea.
Speaking of shaving, if you don't want to shave, I have beard oil as well to get a nice, sexy, smiley, shiny beard.
Uh-huh.
We like smiley beards. That's a thing now. Hashtag smiley beard. And then body scrubs, and I make lotions and body wash and shampoo and face products and.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to take this time to thank you personally for being a sponsor from episode 1.
That's
you really have gotten this show off the ground, and we really appreciate you.
We applaud you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep going.
Now get off this.
Oh.
We have questions to answer. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Leather Daddy. All right, what's our next question?
Next question comes from AIATX. As someone who's fairly new to BDSM, how would you recommend finding and vetting guys that you can trust to cheat you or play online?
Okay, I feel like we've answered this one before in the Gear Up, and this is why, because we give a shout out to Recon all the time. I find Recon the best place for finding leather real players, and it gives you, it's like a menu. You can see what they're into, you can see who their friends are, you see a really good description, and I think we're at the point where people use real pictures. So that is how I do it. How do you guys do it?
Recon is my favorite. For men who have sex with men, Recon is it as far as I'm concerned. It's my main kink connection mechanism, is Recon. The other thing is that I know that there are other hookup sites, and I don't think they necessarily cater to kink in the way that Recon does. So if you really want to explore BDSM, you really want to explore kink, I think Recon is the way to go.
I agree.
One of the things I would say, and I said this at Gear Up, and I think everything that's been said is important, is I think we have to take away the stigma of sex workers, because there are sex workers out there who obviously they know what they're doing, you can talk to them, and like this person asked, they never did it before. Why not go to somebody first that they don't have to worry about a relationship as much as hire somebody and say, what do you do? And tell me. I think we should take the stigma away, and people should think of it.
I
Like
think
a
that's a
bulldog.
good idea. We could do a whole episode about sex workers.
Yeah, we could.
I think that's a good idea.
Let's do that.
Yeah,
Let's
they
do
know
that.
they know what they're doing, and you can ask them questions like
Yeah.
a mentor.
A pro dom,
Yeah,
basically.
And you will be safe in that environment.
You will.
because
they're known. Yeah.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Speaking of pro-doms, RC McCauley asks, is there a book on the psychology of people who enjoy BDSM? Vanilla Dom here.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Richard
Oh.
Sproat's book.
Yes, and the name is escaping me.
I know.
Richard Sproat and David Ortman wrote a book that's, the name is escaping me, but it's superb.
It's called Sexual Outsiders.
Yeah.
There's a
Exactly.
Sexual. Yeah. That.
I have it at home. It is superb.
Yes.
Richard and David are amazing human beings, great psychotherapists,
Great.
and that is the book I would recommend.
Nice.
Sorry, my
Next
square.
question from Tara says, your favorite memory all of you have together. It can be from when you met to the present time. Each of you have something to say about the other three, I'm sure.
Smoke out.
Yeah.
Because remember, we were all at smoke out.
I think Smokeout is absolutely my favorite memory of the four of us, because we were able to relax and chill and
I
play
agree.
and socialize and meet new people and do it in a beautiful atmosphere. I loved it.
I have a memory of Gray Lynn when I was like 23. I had just started working for Drummer Magazine, and you had just won Mr. Drummer, but I hadn't met you yet, but I knew you won. And we had to go for drummers somewhere. We were flying somewhere, and I had to take you to the airport. And you got in the back seat of my car, and you had this amazing boyfriend that had muscles like this big. And the two of you squeezed into my tiny car in the back. And I was so like in awe that you were in my car. I was like tongue-tied and didn't even know how to talk to you.
Wow.
Wow.
I felt like I was in
Okay,
the
you're
presence
not
of
making me
royalty.
cry.
What was his name? What was
Matt?
Matt.
Yes.
God, he was fucking hot.
Yeah.
Jesus
he was.
Christ. But you too, and I was just like, I can't
that's
believe I
so
got these
sweet.
two muscle leather guys in my car, and I was just like tongue-tied and like
Really?
fangirling a little bit, trying not to. Yeah.
That is great. Oh my God. We would have done you.
Little did
Now
you
you
know.
tell me. 30 years later.
I have a question. Have any of you guys respectfully done fun things together in the kinky scene?
I have played with Race
Mm-hmm.
many times. I have played with the Pig many times. I've never played with Graylin.
And I've never played with Graylin. And I've never played with Ken.
Yes, you have.
Graylin is so standoff.
Yes, you have.
Oh God, I have.
Oh, not too many.
Wow.
Sorry.
Leave it in. Leave it in.
I love it. I love
It's been
it.
a while and I'm old.
Look, he's red. I've never seen him this red. Look at how red.
That's embarrassing. That is
But
embarrassing.
you know, everybody thinks we played.
I know.
That's
So what are you doing Saturday night?
Oh.
Playing with somebody else.
well, you know, someone did offer to have us smoking cigars and doing this while we just smoke cigars.
Is he called the little fucker?
Definitely.
We all know the little
Wait,
fucker.
Back to the question.
I love
we
these
on a
questions
tangent
are making us give hates. It's good.
And let me say one thing.
We do fuck our friends.
I
Yes.
love to fuck my friends. I love to play with my friends. Not all of them, but many of them.
Not all of them.
I find that just another level of friendship. I
Yeah.
really like it.
Yeah.
And especially when you're playing with players,
Yes.
they all have a specialty that they can bring, and you feel you can trust them because you know them as a friend. They're not going to hurt you.
Yep.
So it actually does bring another level to the session.
And
Yeah.
it's fun.
How do you ethically fuck your friends? This is a question for me.
How do you ethically?
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you do it?
Oh, that's
I don't
That's a
understand
good
the
question.
What do you mean ethically?
yeah. What do you mean by
That it doesn't ruin the friendship.
I mean, yeah, well, you don't want to ruin the friendship. You don't want to lead someone on without like proper expectations. So like for me, I'd be like, you set the expectations of like what the relationship is. Obviously, you can be friends and fuck, but some people get attachment, in different ways.
Yeah, I think that's on both parties. You just don't
Yeah.
make it awkward after.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair, but how?
Yeah, how?
How would you?
Just don't be awkward.
Okay. The other thing is that a lot of my friends, everybody here, I truly love. I really
I know.
do. And when we play, it's another way of love. I
Yeah.
just think it's a really
But yes, love. But I think separating play from love, from an emotional attachment,
yes. Yeah.
is important
It is
too.
important.
Because there are lots of ways to play and experience different aspects of BDSM without becoming romantically involved.
You're right.
But we
You're-
already have emotional attachments.
Right,
We're already actual friends.
Right.
And so, whatever we do together, we know that it's under the guise of friendship.
Right. So I would change love. I would interchange it with intimacy. It just raises the
Yeah.
intimacy and the friendship.
Intimacy is a good word.
And love, of course, you love your friends, but I do think, like you said, both of you, it raises intimacy.
Yeah.
And maybe makes your friendship stronger if you enter it that way.
In almost every instance, when I play with a friend, it does make the friendship stronger.
Yeah.
I can't really think of one where it does not.
Yeah. No,
Well, there was that one time you played with Graylin and
And obvious. That's very embarrassing.
and now Graylin's never talking to you again.
I thought it meant something.
I've done that before with someone though, and because sexual energies, we have tons of sex positive friends. Next question.
Yes.
Now that you've played, we
I
can just
love you.
now that you've played, we can just ship your name together.
Grace.
It's Grace.
Right over your band for the list.
Graceful.
Graceful.
Oh.
Next question from David Setzman asks, what would you say is the significance of leather queer history? And what aspects of it would you feel are the most important for the younger generation to learn?
Oh, can you repeat that question?
That's a good
Absolutely. So, two parts, kind of. What would you say is the significance of leather queer history? And what is the one thing you think the younger generation needs to learn about art history? So, what importance of it, and the one thing you think that the young generation should have?
For me, the importance of leather queer history would be the fact that leather people have a place in queer history.
Mm.
That's the number one thing, because so often we can be pushed aside, especially in smaller communities.
Right.
So there's that. And the second part of the question was?
The most important thing that you think young queers should learn about art history? Like, what's a part? So, like, for me, it'd be like Stonewall, for instance.
For leather history?
I'm
I'm going to say leather. I'm going to say leather history.
Go.
If somebody starts parroting a lot of old guard stuff where they say this is how it was, and
Your
everybody
leather has to
did
be
this.
handed down.
Right.
Right.
All these kind of rigid rules. I mean, there was a flavor of that, but realize that it's been mythologized and romanticized beyond recognition by a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah, I hear a lot of the old guard rules, and I'm like, I don't even remember
I
that
know.
ever occurring. Where are you coming up with this?
Oh yeah. These hatting ceremonies or whatever. they're
Right.
called.
Remember that? Well,
Hatting.
hatting.
Wait, a what?
Hatting
Hatting all its ages.
Explain the hatting
I
ceremony.
think Hardy Haberman named it that. A capping ceremony.
No, but what is that? Can you please explain?
A capping ceremony.
Yeah, it's. But you know what?
Elaborate.
Capping?
Go ahead.
It's this whole ceremony when someone presents someone with their master's cap, and I had never heard of that until just a few years ago.
No, I had heard of it before that, and I was always confused by that because when they give you the master's cap, does that mean they're no longer a master? What are they going to wear?
Well, you mean you give a sub a collar, they can still be a sub.
So,
Right.
and I'll be honest, I have a little issue with it because it seems to elevate people that are on the dom side of the spectrum. Like you're going to get a special hat and this and that. But I think people on the sub side of the equation are just as important, and there aren't a lot of ceremonies for them. There are collaring ceremonies, but there's something different about the way they do capping ceremonies.
But on the reverse of that, I do like, especially when I outgrow it, I do love gifting
Yes.
my
Yes,
old leather.
absolutely.
But it's not this makes you accepted into the community.
It's
It's just like
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
me giving
I'd be proud for you to wear something that I wore proudly.
Well, also, this no longer fits me. Here you
Right,
go.
well,
you
actually,
person.
like I'm going to give him my leather pants that
See?
don't. But you know what I would say to that is embrace it and take it for history and culture, because I am sick of our culture being thrown away. And you know, these things happened and they were fun, and it was people exploring. So the capping ceremony at the time, at least it was people trying to bring some construct to our community. And that's what joined us. You know, those are the kind of things you went to the event, all right, it didn't last more than 2 years, but it was an event when there was nothing for us. So I say, when you look back at all that, I honor those people for trying to say we are important. It's our culture, and you know what, if it's gone, it was fun for them, let's embrace it.
But let's keep teaching it.
Yeah,
I wanna-
yeah.
I want to say that I think the history gives us all a base to grow from, and especially younger people who don't understand where we came from. It unites us when we all know that this is how things started, or these are some of the people who said certain things or did certain things. So it just helps us understand that those things unite us. It's like a recipe.
Yeah.
It passed down from a family.
Exactly.
It changes and changes, but it's still that same basic recipe. And if you know that so and so Aunt Mary originated that, it still goes back to that. So it gives us a place to start from.
Right, and I don't think we'd be where we are today if people didn't try those things. Try things, fail often, keep what works, get rid of what doesn't.
And respect whatever traditions people do, realizing everyone's going to have different ones.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad about people having hatting ceremonies.
No.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
having mine. But I think it's great that you did.
I do too. It's an anachronism.
And Aunt Mary's cream pie was perfect. You just need to add something on top of it.
Yes.
I do want to challenge you guys, though. You answered the importance of leather history really, really well. I want to know what parts of history need to be taught. So is there an instance in time, an event, a person that queer people should know about? One thing each.
Ooh. Queen Chris.
Okay, you said queer. I'm going to actually make it leather queer.
That's fine.
And that was when Living in Leather had its first conference, where, to the best of my knowledge, it was the first time that people of all gender expressions, all orientations, etc., came together under one conference roof, if you will, and socialized and had educational things and met and discussed things. I don't think that was ever done before.
I agree.
And I think that set a path for our scene, and I think it's important for people to know about that Living in Leather history.
I agree.
There's when HIV first happened, when AIDS first happened, and the leather community was blamed for a lot of it.
But the leather community stepped up.
Well, I was getting to that. You just jumped off into my story.
I was listening, Graylin.
Thank you. But it's right. You know, we were getting blamed for AIDS, and the leather community stepped up and took over and created things like, you know, AIDS Emergency Fund and all of those. The
Right.
bars got involved, the title holders got involved, and so we decided that we had to take care of our own, and we did.
And we did. And I'll say one thing about leather is there is a piece of it that has a drag component in terms of a little bit of costuming. And you know, it was drag queens and leather guys who were willing to put their face out there and get on the news and get chained to the stock exchange when they weren't doing things for drugs. And we, granted, other people in the community might not have been able to, but those people stepped up.
To the best of my knowledge, the first safer sex guide, and I may be wrong, but that I remember here in San Francisco, was a collaboration between the leather community and the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence.
Yes,
You're right.
it was.
And I lived on the East Coast at the time, and I'm going to tell you that went national.
Yep.
And that was the first time I really started getting knowledgeable about the sisters.
And don't forget about the lesbians who stepped
Oh,
up and
absolutely.
took care of us. They really, really stepped up and took care of us.
And can I give a shout out for that, sir? Because I'll tell you, when the Fred Phelps was out, you know, at our funerals, it was the people who were guards at abortion clinics who showed up to, you know, guard us against those, you know, really vile people that were actually at our funerals, you know, like protesting them. And it was women. You're absolutely right. And they were organized because they were doing that at abortion clinics to get people in. And they came in that organization and they stood at wherever those funerals were. And I agree with you. We can never forget gay women for what they did for us.
And I recall a number of heterosexual women
Yes,
who stepped up in a way that was beautiful at the time.
it was those women from the abortion clinics who
Yep.
were guarding women to get in, came and guarded us at funerals.
Look at the quilt.
The quilts, right?
Which we talked about in the last episode. Mine would be we talked about Drummer Magazine, but do some history and research on Drummer Magazine, Tony DeBlois and creating the leather pride flag, San Utopia University. All
Yeah.
of those things are big pieces of our history that are lost because they were never digitized.
You're right.
So we're now internet based, but 70s, 80s, 90s, there's a big chunk of history that the kids aren't getting now because it was all in magazine and print.
You're right.
And Drummer Magazine was a treasure trove
Oh yeah.
of information that's not out there right now. You'd have to search through those magazines, but amazing articles, amazing stories, amazing how-to tutorials. It was our Bible.
Yeah.
And
Instrumental.
I'd say, again, Pride, please teach yourself what Pride is, how it started, who started it, why
Yep.
it started, and the implications of it. Yeah, it was a long time ago, but history doesn't change, even if our customs and how we live do. But a lot of people forget the importance of like how Pride started, who did it, and the importance of it, you know, the sex around it, the different identities that have always been there. And without that history, we get so off topic so quickly when we forget about community.
We get off topic.
Did we get off topic on that?
No. Tangents aside, next question that comes from Horan.
Horan?
That's their name. Don't wear it out. Or do. It can be hard and it can feel unwelcoming because I'm a woman in leather spaces going to claw. I sometimes feel like I'm an intruder in the space. This could honestly, perhaps, just be my own anxiety, but what do you guys think about leather spaces and women? And to that, I will say more than just women. Let's say non-masculine, non-male people at places like Claw.
So
Go ahead.
What are your opinions?
I'm intimately familiar with Claw. Claw was founded as essentially a gay men's event. It has always been welcoming of women. However, they have never specifically catered the agenda of the weekend to women. So I can understand why somebody would feel a little bit like they don't belong because the event doesn't do programming specifically for them. But they've always been welcome.
Yeah, and so just so you know, our demographics for our YouTube show is about 40 to 50% women.
Yeah.
Which ends.
So women are very curious in our lifestyle and community. That being said, I think that there's got to be some sort of balance because we're gay men. We're attracted to other men. And a lot of these events are for gay men to play with other gay men. So yes, of course, if you're female going into that kind of space, you're gonna feel odd man out a little bit. But I have never seen us not be welcoming. I don't think we're welcoming when it comes to playing with you, but we're gay.
Right.
So I don't understand if they're not feeling welcome because they're not able to have sex with us, or if they're not feeling welcome because we shun them.
Well, so no follow-up questions, but can I add a perspective to that?
Sure.
Horan does go on to say after that in the thread that you guys have always been lovely in making an accessible space and love the education and history, and that's great. So like they weren't saying that you weren't being friendly, but I will say that I think that kind of to your point, there's a time and a place for everything.
Mhm.
It's not about being exclusionary, but providing a space for people to experience and grow in that experience. So like, for instance, if Claw is a coming out of like leather and queerness for this person who's more femme identity, like fine, there's space for that. But that might also be a space for a gay guy who's never been out at all to be kinky and queer, and they need that space to grow as much as she does.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that there are spaces like Claw, and there's spaces in Claw for everyone, and then there's sometimes like play parties that are specific to one or two identities, and I think that should be allowed so long as people aren't being disrespectful about it.
I agree.
You know, we all need to grow in our own time and pace.
I just had this very conversation at Blackout, which is a national conference for Onyx. And I had this conversation with one of my brothers who's a trans man and his soon-to-be wife, who was one of the Onyx Pearls, which were the women that work with Onyx. And they explained that it's not necessarily the event producers. It's the people who attend the event.
Right.
And they understand that they can't control that, but they also believe that the producers of the events, and I agree, should have some sort of policy in place in writing that says you cannot be disrespectful to our guests.
Right.
If you're disrespectful to our guests, you will be asked to leave.
Yeah.
And if women are at our events and they are our guests, they are to be respected. And no, we can't control the crowd, but if someone in the crowd does something that should not be done or said, they need to be asked to leave. And that needs to be put in writing, and they need to be told this up front.
I agree.
Honestly, that's the key.
It is the
most
key.
Event problems is there was not a guideline written, and people are being like, or there is a guideline written that people aren't following.
Right.
It's very easy to say, well, here's the event, here's the rule, you're breaking it, or we're following it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that organizations need to be good about that as well.
Yeah.
So that's accountability on them sometimes.
Yeah, if I can add one thing, for about the last 10 years, not in the last 2, I had a wonderful opportunity to work pretty closely with the trans community. And when I was talking with some folks from the Trans Law Center, this came up. And I was saying, I think if you talk to the producers, and just like you say, there are identified male spaces, let's start like having classes that people come forward and say, these are trans, or these are female spaces, or these are, pans welcome places, and step forward. And I don't think that people have it. I know that they have, but just like the hatting ceremony, step forward and be the one to start something, and something will grow from it. And I think instead of stepping back and saying, I don't feel like they're welcoming, you're right. Go to the organizers and say, I want to have a class at this conference for this hour, and let's see what happens. Organically, it'll grow.
That's a good point, especially with Claw. They're always looking, they have like over 200 classes. I mean, so there should be classes.
There probably already is.
Women, there probably are. There's also pansexual events and stuff like Thunder in the Mountains and other more inclusive spaces as well.
The one other
Great
thing
point.
I want to say is that our community is no different than any other community, and we're constantly evolving. And that means it's going to get bumpy. I will give the example of a lot of trans men did not feel comfortable in gay male spaces.
Right.
That is changing.
Yeah, look at Gira.
Yeah, we have a lot of progress. Not perfect, but we evolve. And so allowing for that evolution, allowing for the bumpiness, the conversation, the dialogue, and realize it's gonna be a little messy sometimes. So I really think it's important to not look at everything in stark contrast and say we evolve, we discuss, we dialogue, we experience, and eventually things change.
And I truly believe our community is the one to do it. So step out there. Have a class that just says, you know, how do we feel more comfortable here? And see who shows up.
Well, you know, I mean, yes, that, but I think there also has to be
Affinity group.
affinity places for people. You know, like at Folsom, we had a booth for BIPOC people to come in and just be around BIPOC people.
Would you say
I
what
think-
BIPOC is for those who don't know?
Black, I gotta do it with the fingers. Black, indigenous people of color.
Oh,
Okay. And have spaces for BIPOC people and women and trans men and women who can just get together and be alone with themselves.
Yeah.
You know, like we don't always want to be teaching a class or and doing all that kind of work. Sometimes we just want to hang with each other. And if we're given a space where we could just go hang with each other, let our hair down, exhale, and then go back and deal with the masses. And I would say that would be something that I'd love to see women do. Have a space at an event where they could say, okay, from 5 to 8, we're meeting here, and we're just gonna do our thing.
I love it.
And if we have control of events or spaces where we have the real estate, the place that we control, it's incumbent upon us to some extent, extend the offer to others to come in and use that
Absolutely.
space. And because sometimes we have the privilege, I don't use that word very often, but we have the privilege of the ability to host events, to have spaces, to have
Organize.
real estate and organize. And it is incumbent upon us to invite other people in.
And I want to say one other thing. It isn't either or, it's and. And a lot of guys will say, but we really, we like to play at these spaces. And that will happen, and so will theirs.
Good answers. Good answers.
Thank you.
Next
What was the
question.
In the immortal words of Hannah Montana, nobody's perfect. Next question. From
I
Visible
never saw
Restraint.
the show.
You never saw Hannah Montana?
I never saw it.
I didn't either.
Really?
It's
Never.
it's Miley Cyrus, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's Hannah Montana. Shh.
I'm Hannah Montana. Me, Miley.
The next question.
She changed. She's new.
From Visible Restraint. Often it gets young pervs off to do exactly the sex that mainstream culture tells them not to do. Does this impulse change with age, and how?
Oh.
And then, no. Hold
Okay.
it. Is it hot, for instance, once you're established in the kink community, to play in ways that are unexpected for someone in your position?
Okay, I'm the old guy, the oldest guy here. And let me say, as you get older, you give a fuck less.
You don't give a rat's ass.
And I think you care less what other people think, so you try more.
Yep.
So you expand your horizons.
Yep.
To
You are
a
right.
little bit.
And I think originally, because we were such outsiders, like when we first came out, we were mental illness. We were still in the DSM.
We were mental illness.
We were. That's what they said to us. And we did just what you said.
No.
We might still be. But you know what? I have to say, what you're thinking, no matter how experienced the person is that you're interacting with, they have and do feel the same way. So just be open.
But I mean, when I was in my 20s, if you told me water sports, no way. Now I'm like, yeah!
Rain on me.
I'm like, bring it. Rain on me. Rain on me.
But I think as you get older, you get bored of doing the, okay, I've done the impact play, I've tied people up, I
poor
need
thing.
something new. So I know I started looking for other things. It's like, I've done all that. I need some fun stuff now.
Right.
And so I want to explore. And I'm 60-something. And I'm doing things that I've never done before.
Yeah.
I'm doing things I never did before, and I'm like, why didn't I start sooner?
Right?
I mean,
Same here.
why didn't I?
Same here.
And I think the younger guys are starting sooner than we did.
Oh, way so.
That's what I'm
Oh my
thinking.
God, they're doing things that
But
we
you're
I
haven't
know.
done.
No, you're not. What's the question?
The question being, you're right there. Is it hot? as an established person to play in unexpected ways. So are you playing
Oh, God,
in
yes.
ways that people didn't expect, and does that make it
Oh,
hotter
yeah.
to you?
So yes, I went to a play party where I was 100% bottom sub, which I never would have done
Uh-huh.
once upon a time, and I don't think I would have even entertained that before I was 60 years old. I don't know why, but for some reason, as I got older, I just didn't give a fuck anymore.
Right.
And I think that younger people, one of the things I respect about younger Kinksters is the fact that they just go for what they want.
Yeah.
They
More so
do.
than we did. I was way more uptight than the younger people are today.
Me
Yeah.
too.
I always said it was the second coming out kinky. You had to deal with being gay, and then you dealt with being kinky, and that was a 5-year period in between. And now they're one and the same. Yeah, they do everything kinky right out of the gate.
And let me just say to young people, keep doing that.
Yes.
That is so cool. I wish I had done that when I was younger.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and look at us. If you're at an event and you see old guard or, just old queers around, start talking to them, because look at us. We can't stop. They will talk to you. They will talk to you. And
All you have to do is talk to them, and we love talking.
Okay.
I don't think you talk forever. Ask our producer.
Hey, kids. I actually have a follow-up. So do you think your own personal kinks or just interests evolve over time?
Oh, God. Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
And do you guys have any secret kinks you've never told anyone about?
Ooh.
You don't have to tell me what it is, but I'm just curious. Like, are there things that are so perverse you don't share with, like...
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
wow.
Oh, and I'm way
This
kinkier
one,
than I
yes.
was.
Oh yeah.
Way kinkier than I was when I was younger.
But you know
Way.
what's really funny is like I could talk to people online that I've known for years,
great?
and we're talking play dates, and eventually they'll say something like, "Well, I've known you forever, and we're gonna play. But what do you think of this?" And then we go down this really, really dark rabbit hole, and it's like, "Oh, thank God you want to do this, or thank God you want to say those things that people don't ever want to say."
Right.
So yeah, I think now it's like,
Yeah, dark rabbit holes are
dark
great.
rabbit
Yeah, they are.
hole. Yeah.
Can one of the things that I've discovered, and this probably happened when I was about 55, was, and I'm a lot older than that now, is that I liken it to how kids have an imagination and they'll play and they'll do whatever and they do crazy things and make up, phantom friends. And I think gay people, straight gay, non-kink gay people and us, do harbor those thoughts, and it's a part of the imagination that's actually grown our community. Is that people learn how to do it, they start communicating it, and you know what? It's healthy. It is very healthy, and I think whoever asked that question, they obviously have some things they think aren't going to be accepted, and they should go for it because they will find a community.
Well, that was
But wait till it's
I asked the
safe.
question.
Wait till
When it's
safe.
safe, well, of course, like we said, everything. I think get with somebody who knows what they're doing.
And to answer visible restraints question, yes, absolutely. I do get off on mind bending a little bit what people's expectations of me are. Like on my Twitter feed and my Just for Fans site, people usually subscribe because they think I'm a dom daddy
Right.
or I'm a daddy and I'm going to be this top. So when I go into sub pig mode or wearing chastity or these things they don't expect
Or be a
of me,
horse.
or be a horse,
Right.
or be a pony, my pony play. People actually really get off on that, just seeing that juxtaposition.
I love it.
I think it gives other people who are used to having to be like the dom top all the time permission to be like, well, Mr. Kristofer can do this, I can do it too.
I agree.
You're part
No,
of the
that is
reason I'm
that
a
is
switch.
not how you should live.
I'm
life.
part of the reason you're in.
Yeah, it is.
Just because daddy does something doesn't mean you should do it.
No, I'm gonna, just so I say this, Kristofer is part of the reason I'm a switch. Because I saw you so openly and publicly and with joy be a switch
Right.
that it allowed me to do it in a way that
That's sweet.
you were part of the reason.
And as somebody who only has a sub-down relationship with him, I love seeing him sub. I don't know why, but it's titillating to me.
Well, let's forget about gangbang and amp. Let's gangbang.
Finally!
Right, sorry. When was that? Let's go back to the last part. I didn't even hear that was an option. Okay, last question. Are you guys ready for the last
We're
question?
ready.
Yeah, last question, bring it.
This one from Oh, sorry, I can't read the Pup Amp says, say one nice thing about everyone on the team. Or, sorry. The question: can you say one nice thing about it? Let's start with the pig. Let's start on this end.
Oh, God, about each person or one?
Just say something nice.
Okay.
Real quick.
One of the things that I really appreciate about Race is he has such a great position in the community and doesn't like Kardashian it. He's really respectable.
Though you and a Kardashian would.
I want you to see Race Kardashian.
No, but he's everywhere. But Graylin, not Grayland, Graylin, I think is so open, and it's still, I'm going to be honest about it, still teaches me things about race. Not you, but no, about because, well, you talk about race in ways where this has been a problem, this isn't, and yet this is funny. And I find that really, really inspiring.
Yes.
What I have to say about Sir Kristofer is he is far more kind and thoughtful than I think anybody would think. And it always impresses me, and always will.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay, so I'll start with you, Pig. I've known you 6 or 7 years. You're just amazing guy. You never lack for a story. Your stories are always informative. You have coached me in my personal life so much, and you're just always there for me. And your knowledge is just breathtaking. So you're actually one of the main reasons we started this show, because you and I would sit around having these exact conversations
We should film
all the time. Graylin, I have always admired because of your involvement in the community.
Mm-hmm.
You have been there for 30 years of me living here in San Francisco, and you've always been a good friend to me. We have a little push and pull relationship, but I love you like a brother. And you're also very knowledgeable about everything in the community. Race, you are Switzerland. You stay neutral on everything. You never say an unkind word about anyone. You don't gossip ever, but you know everything. You have got your ear to the ground on everything. So you've been an amazing mentor to me my entire life, and I've known you 30 years. So.
Wow. So I want to say, Pig, I've only known you for a few years, but I love your level of intelligence. You just seem to be an expert on so many things, and whenever you start to talk, I'm just like, you should write a book.
They should write a book.
I'm a shitty writer.
Next one, write it for me. But you have so much knowledge that's just buried in your head. And I'd love for you to get that out so that, younger generations can hear your stories, because they're pretty awesome.
Or we could do a YouTube show.
They would not get so yeah, Chris, yes, we've known each other for 30 years, but I think my most fun memories are when we worked together at Brush Creek Media.
You were a great boss.
Well, thank you. We had so much fun together, and I learned a lot about the whole industry from you, but I also learned how to deal with other people. You actually helped me through some situations that were quite difficult. And I'm not gonna say those on camera. But there were times that were difficult at Brush Creek.
I remember.
Okay. So Race, you're the person I want to be when I grow up. No, I mean, because you are able to work your way through so many various communities, and you know someone in every community, and you know how to bring those people together. Like every time I talk to you, you're saying, do you know this person? Have you talked to that person? You send me emails on things that I should be doing and knowing. And I really appreciate that. And so, yeah, the way you can move through communities and spread information's admirable.
So I'm going to start by talking about Amp.
Oh.
I was gonna drag all y'all at the end of this.
See, and this is why race everyone.
He does it.
He does it again.
He does.
There are very few younger Kinksters that well, there's no one I respect more than Amp.
Me.
On every level, personality, dedication to the community, intellect, doesn't matter.
Brilliance, yeah.
Brilliant. Let me just say that. And I think Watts the Safe Word, along with Kristofer, has done more good for the scene than most things I can think of. So let me just say that. Pig, your intellect is insane. You are so fucking smart. And I have never had a conversation with you where I didn't learn something.
So Kristofer, you know, I talked about the fact that you're part of the reason I'm a switch because I admire the way you engage in your kink life so much. But very few people are so open and engage in their kink with such abandon as you. And it's inspiring because you inspire me, but you inspire everybody that you come in contact with, whether you realize it or not.
Graylin, I have never seen anyone more dedicated to the community than you. Ever. Ever. And I don't mean just the Black community, that you have rallied in a way that is incredibly inspiring and educational and important at this slice in time, but the community generally. You always think, we'll have a private conversation, and it's like, what about this person? And how do we bring this person in? And what do we do to make sure everybody feels included? I've never met anybody who's like you, like that. I really haven't. And so you're inspired.
Oh, thank you. And the kinky sex you've met with.
And the kid, the best scene ever. Fucking amazing. Fucking amazing.
Oh my God.
Everybody. Unforgettable.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to call time on this. I think we've answered all the questions, and thank you for sending in your questions. I actually enjoyed this format a lot. Just sitting around and off the cuff.
Part two.
I could do this more. I really enjoy this.
Please don't. There's already too much to edit.
Because they go on tangents.
Yeah, just that.
They just
you never do.
Closing.
Okay, so if you like our show, please subscribe to it down below. If you want to get notified of the next one, ring that bell. We are wearing some lovely merchandise that you can get at thesafewordshop.com if you like some of our shirts. Otherwise, we just want to give a big thank you to you guys. We've almost been doing this for a year. The feedback has been great. And I really appreciate you guys doing this every month with us. So thank you guys. We will talk to you next time. If you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see us talk about, leave it in the comments down below. And with that, our producer looks like he's going to fly away.
No, I'm telling you guys to say goodbye.
Oh, bye! Thank God we have Amp, or we wouldn't know what to do.
Also, leave comments for next time in the comments to engage people and also have things for next. Okay, just cut the cameras.
Bye! Bye! We're all going to have sex with Graylin now.
Oh, there you go.
See what race has been raving.
And remember it.
And I'm taking this.
And I'm taking this. Thank you, Leather Daddy. Oh, and thank you to our sponsor, Mr. S. Leather, who also makes this possible. Thank you so much. Bye! Bye.